Clockwork Orange by Anthony Burgess. Chapter 2. Well, it was the letting in of this new Jelovic that was really the start of my getting out of the old Stasia, for he was such a nasty, quarrelsome type of plenty, with a very dirty mind and filthy intentions. That trouble nauseated that very same day. He was also very boastful, and started to make with a very sneery litzo at us all, and a loud, proud golos. He made out that he was the only real horror show, prestupnik, in the whole zoo, going on that he'd done this, and done that, and done the other, and killed 10 roses with one crack of his Ruger, and all that cal. But nobody was very impressed, oh, my brothers. So then he started on me being the youngest there, trying to say that, as the youngest, I ought to be the one to zasnoot on the floor, and not him. But all the others were for me, screeching, "Leave him alone, you grasny brachny." And then he began the old whine about how nobody loved him. So that same noche I woke up to find this horrible plenty actually lying with me on my bunk, which was on the bottom of the 3-tier, and also very narrow, and he was govoreating, dirty, like love slovos, and stroking away. So then I got real bazoomy and lashed out, though I could not vidi all that horror show, there being only this malinky little red light outside on the landing. But I knew it was this one, the funny bastard. And then, when the trouble really got underway and the lights were turned on, I could vidi his horrible litzo, with all gravy dripping from his rot where I did out with my clawing Ruger. What sluchatted then, of course, was that my cellmates woke up and started to join in, toe-jogging a bit, wild in the near dark, and the shoom seemed to wake up the whole tier, so that you could slushy a lot of screeching and banging about with tin mugs on the wall, as though all the plenties in all the cells thought a big break was about to commence, oh, my brothers. So then the lights came on, and the chazos came along with their shirts and trousers and caps, waving big sticks. You could vidi each other's flushed litzos and the shaking of fisty Rugers, and there was a lot of screeching and cursing. Then I put in my complaint, and every chaso said it was probably your humble narrator, brothers, that started it all anyway. Me having no mark of scratch on me, but this horrible plenty dipping red gravy from the rot where I'd got him with my clawing Ruger. That made me real bazoomy. I said I would not sleep another noche in that cell if the prison authorities were going to allow horrible, funny, stinking, perverted prestupniks to leap on my plot when I was in no position to defend myself, being asleep. Wait till the morning, they said. Is it a private room with bath and television that your honour requires? Well, all that will be seen to in the morning. But for the present, little Droog, get your bleeding Gulliver down on your straw-filled badushka, and let's have no more trouble from anyone. Right. Then off they went, with stern warnings for all. Then, soon after, the lights went out, and then I said I would sit up all the rest with your horrible, funny plot lying on it already. But then the others joined in. Big Jew said, still sweating from the bit of a britva we'd had in the dark. Not having that we're not brothers, don't give in to the squirt. So this new one said, crash your Dermot yid, meaning to shut up, but it was very insulting. So then Big Jew got ready to launch a toe jock. The doctor said, come on, gentlemen, we don't want any trouble, do we? In his very high-class colors. But this new Prestupnik was really asking for it. You could pity that he thought he was a very big Bolshevik, and it was beneath his dignity to be sharing a cell with 6 and having to sleep on the floor till I made this gesture at him. In his sneery way, he tried to take off the doctor, saying, "Ow, you want no more trouble, is that it, Archibalds?" So Jojan, mean and keen and wiry, said, "If we can't have sleep, let's have some education. Our new friend here had better be taught a lesson." Although he specialized in sexual assault, he had a nice way of cooperating, quiet and precise. So the new Plenny sneered, "Kish and kosh and koosh, you little terror." So then it all really started, but in a queer, gentle way, with nobody raising his collars much. The new Plenny creached a malinky bit at first, but the wall visited his rot while Big Jew held him up against the bars so that he could be viddied in the malinky red light from the landing, and he just went, "Oh, oh, oh." He was not a very strong type of egg, being very feeble in his trying to talk back, and I suppose he made up for this by being shoomy in the collars and very boastful. Anyway, seeing the old grovey flow red in the red light, I felt the old joy rising up my kishkas, and I said, "Leave him to me. Go on, let me have him now, brothers." So Big Jew said, "Yes, yes, boys, that is fair. Thrash him then, Alex." So they all stood around while I cracked at this Prestupnik in the dark. I fisted him all over, dancing about with my boots on, although unlaced. And then I tripped him, and he went crash, crash onto the floor. I gave him one real horror show kick on the Gulliver, and he went, "Oh." Then he sort of snorted off to sleep, and the doctor said, "Very well, I think that will be enough of a lesson." Squinting to viddy this downed and beaten up Vec on the floor. Let him dream, perhaps, about being a better boy in the future. So we all climbed back into our bunks, being very tired now. What I dreamt of, oh my brothers, was of being in some very big orchestra, hundreds and hundreds strong, and the conductor was a mixture of Ludwig van and G.F. Handel, looking very deaf and blind and weary of the world. I was with the wind instruments, but what I was playing was like a white, pinky bassoon made of flesh and growing out of my plot, right in the middle of my belly. And when I blew into it, I had to smack very loud because it tickled. And then Ludwig van G.F. got very ras and bazoomy. Then he came right up to my litzo and creached loud in my ugo, and then I woke up sweating. Of course, what the so were the others, except for Wall, who slept like dead meat. Very unfortunate, the doctor said. A heart attack, that's what it must have been. Then he said, looking round at us all, you really shouldn't have gone for him like that. It was most ill-advised, really. Joe John said, Come, Doc, you weren't all that backward yourself in giving him a sly bit of fist. Then Big Jew turned on me, saying, Alex, you were too impetuous. That last kick was a very, very nasty one. I began to get ras about this, and said, Who started it, eh? I only got in at the end, didn't I? I pointed at Joe John and said, It was your idea. Wall snored a bit loud, so I said, Wake that funny Brachny up. It was him that kept on at his rot while Big Jew here had him up against the bars. The doctor said, Nobody will deny having a little hit at the man to teach him a lesson, so to speak. But it's apparent that you, my dear boy, with the forcefulness and, shall I say, heedlessness of youth, dealt him the coup de grace. It's a great pity. Traitors, I said, traitors and liars. Because I could pity it was all like before, 2 years before, when my so-called droogs had left me to the brutal rugers of the Millicents. There is no trust anywhere in the world, oh my brothers, the way I could see it. And Joe John went and woke up Wall, and Wall was only too ready to swear that it was your humble narrator that had done the real dirty tull-jogging and brutality. When the J-Sauce came along, and then the Chief J-Sauce, and then the Governor himself, all these sal-droogs of mine were very shumony with tales of what I'd done to ubivate this worthless pervert whose grovy-covered plot lay slack-like on the floor. That was a very queer day, oh my brothers. The dead plot was carried off, and then everybody in the whole prison had to stay locked up till further orders. And there was no bischa given out, not even a mug of hot chai. We just all sat there, and the warders, or chase-houses, sort of strode up and down the tier, now and then preaching, Shut it, or Close that hole, whenever they slushied even a whisper from any of the cells. Then, about 11 o'clock in the morning, there was a sort of like stiffening and excitement, and like the fawn of fear spreading from outside the cell. And then we could pity the Governor and the Chief Jaso and some very bulgy, important-looking Chelovecs walking by real scary, cavorting like Bazoomy. They seemed to walk right to the end of the tier. Then they could be I was dragged down, nice and gentle, by brutal, tall-jogging Jesos, to Viddy the governor, in his holy of holies holy office. The governor looked very weary at me and said, "I don't suppose you know who that was this morning, do you? 6655321. And without waiting for me to say no, he said, "That was no less a personage than the Minister of the Interior, the new Minister of the Interior, and what they call a very new broom." Well, these new ridiculous ideas have come at last, and orders are orders, though I may say to you in confidence that I do not approve. I most emphatically do not approve. An eye for an eye, I say. If someone hits you, you hit back, don't you? Why then should not the state very severely hit by you brutal hooligans not hit back also? But the new view is to say no. The new view is that we turn the bad into the good, all of which seems to me grossly unjust. So I said, trying to be respectful and accommodating, "Sir." And then the chief Jeso, who was standing all red and burly behind the governor's chair, screeched, "Shut your filthy hole, you scum." All right, said the tired and fagged out governor. "You, 6655321, are to be reformed. Tomorrow you go to this man Brodsky. It is believed that you will be able to leave state custody in a little over a fortnight. In a little over a fortnight, you will be out again in the big free world, no longer a number. I suppose," and he snorted a bit here, "that prospect pleases you." I said nothing, so the chief Jeso screeched, "Answer, you filthy young swine, when the governor asks you a question." So I said, "Oh, yes, sir. Thank you very much, sir. I've done my best here. Really, I have. I'm very grateful to all concerned." "Don't be," sighed the governor. "This is which they did. Then he spoke in a very earnest way to me, saying, "One thing I want you to understand, boy, is that this is nothing to do with me. Were it expedient, I would protest about it, but it is not expedient. There is the question of my own career. There is the question of the weakness of my own voice when set against the shout of certain more powerful elements in the polity. Do I make myself clear?" He didn't, brothers, but I nodded that he did. "Very hard ethical questions are involved," he went on. "You are to be made into a good boy, 6655321. Never again will you have the desire to commit acts of violence or to offend in any way whatsoever against the state's peace. I hope you take all that in. I hope you are absolutely clear in your own mind about that." I said, "Oh, it will be nice to be good, sir." But I had a real horror-show smack at that inside, brothers. He said, "It may not be nice to be good, little 6655321. It may be horrible to be good. And when I say that to you, I realize how self-contradictory that sounds. I know I shall have many sleepless nights about this. What does God want? Does God want goodness or the choice of goodness? Is a man who chooses the bad perhaps in some way better than a man who has the good imposed upon him? Deep and hard questions, little 6655321. But all I want to say to you now is this. If at any time in the future you look back to these times and remember me, and lowest and humblest of all God's servants, the lowest and humblest of all God's servitors, do not, I pray, think evil of me in your heart, thinking me in any way involved in what is now about to happen to you. And now, talking of praying, I realize sadly that there will be little point in praying for you. You are passing now to a region where you will be beyond the reach of the power of prayer. A terrible, terrible thing to consider. And yet, in a sense, in choosing to be deprived of the ability to make an ethical choice, you have, in a sense, really chosen the good. So I shall like to think. So, God help us all, 6655321. I shall like to think. And then he began to cry. But I didn't really take much notice of that, brothers, only having a bit of a quiet smack inside, because you could pity that he had been beating away at the old whiskey, and now he took a bottle from a cupboard in his desk and started to pour himself a real horror-show bulgy slog into a very greasy and grasny glass. He downed it and then said, "All may be well, who knows? God works in a mysterious way." Then he began to sing away at a hymn in a real loud, rich colossus. Then the door opened and the Chasos came in to toe-chock me back to my bonny cell. But the old Charles still went on singing this hymn. Well, the next morning I had to say goodbye to the old Stasia, and I had felt a malinky bit sad, as you always will when you have to leave a place you've got used to. But I didn't go very far, oh my brothers. I was punched and kicked along to the new white building just beyond the yard, smell, which gave you a bit of the shivers. I stood there in the horrible, bulgy, bare hall, and I got new fawns, sniffing away there with my very sensitive Mordor or sniffer. These were like hospital fawns, and the Jelovec the Chasers handed me over to had a white coat on, as might be a hospital man. He signed for me, and one of the brutal Chasers who had brought me said, "You watch this one, sir. A right brutal bastard he has been, and will be again, in spite of all his sucking up to the prison chaplain and reading the Bible." But this new Jelovec had real horror show blue glasses, which smiled when he cavorted. He said, "Oh, we don't anticipate any trouble. We're going to be friends, aren't we?" And he smiled with his glasses and his fine big rod, which was full of shining white zubies, and I sort of took to this Vec right away. Anyway, he passed me on to a lesser Vec in a white coat, and this one was very nice too, and I was led off to a very nice, white, clean bedroom with curtains and a bedside lamp, and just one bed in it, all for your humble narrator. So I had a real horror show in respect at that, thinking I was really a very lucky young Malchikiwick. I was told to take off my horrible prison blatties, and I was given a really beautiful set of pyjamas. Oh, my brothers, in plain green, the height of bedwear fashion. And I was given a nice warm dressing gown too, and lovely tufos to put my bare nogas in. And I thought, well, Alex boy, little 6655321 as was, you have copped it lucky, and no mistake. You are really going to enjoy it here. After I had been given a nice jazzas of real water show coffee and some gazettas and mags to look at while beating it, this first Vec in white came in, the one who had signed for me, and he said, "Ah, there you are." A silly sort of a vesh to say, but it didn't sound silly, this Vec being so nice. "My name," he said, "is Dr. Branham. I'm Dr. Brodsky's assistant. With your permission, I'll just give you the usual brief overall examination." And he took the old stetho out of his right corman. "We must make sure you're quite fit, mustn't we?" "Yes, indeed, we must." So, while I lay there with my pyjama top off, he did this, that, and the other, I said, "What exactly is it, sir, that you're going to do?" "Oh," said Dr. Branham, his cold stetho going all down my back. "It's quite simple, really. We just show you some films." "Films?" I said. I could hardly believe my Ogos, brothers, as you may well understand. "You mean," I said, "it will be just like going to the pictures?" "There'll be special films," said this Dr. Brannan. "Very special films. You'll be having the first session this afternoon." "Yes," he said, getting up from bending over me. "You seem to be quite a fit young boy. A bit undernourished, perhaps. That will be the fault of the prison food. Put your pyjama top back on. After every meal," he said, sitting on the edge of the bed, "we shall be giving you a shot in the arm. That should help." I felt really grateful to this very nice Dr. Branham. Bloodsport, Cine, this being a film mag, and Goal. Then I lay back on the bed and shut my glasses and thought how nice it was going to be out there again. Alex with perhaps a nice, easy job during the day. Me being now too old for the old scollywall. And then perhaps getting a new gang together for the Noji. And the first rabbit would be to get old Tim and Pete, if they had not been got already by the Millicents. This time I would be very careful not to get loveted. They were giving another chance, me having done murder and all, and it would not be fair to get loveted again after going to all this trouble to show me films that were going to make me a real good malchick. I had a real horror show smack at everybody's innocence, and I was smacking my Gulliver off when they brought in my lunch on the tray. The vet who brought it was the one who'd led me to this malanky bedroom when I came into the mesto, and he said, "It's nice to know somebody's happy." It was really a very nice, appetizing bit of pizza they'd laid out on the tray. 2 or 3 lumticks of hot roast beef with mashed kartoffel and veg, and then there was also ice cream and a nice hot jasha of chai. And there was even a cancer to smoke and a matchbox with 1 match in. So this looked like it was the life, oh my brothers. Then, about half an hour after, while I was lying a bit sleepy on the bed, a woman nurse came in, a real nice young devochka with real horror show crudies. I had not seen such for 2 years, and she had a tray and a hypodermic. I said, the old vitamins, eh? And I clicked at her, but she took no notice. All she did was slam the needle into my left arm, and then swish, in went the vitamin stuff. Then she went out again, clack, clack, on her high-heeled nogas. Then the white-coated vec, who was like a male nurse, came in with a wheelchair. I was a malanky bit surprised to pity that. I said, "What giveth then, brother? I can walk, surely, to whatever we have to eat too." But he said, "Best I push you there." And indeed, oh my brothers, when I got off the bed, I found myself a malanky bit weak. It was the undernourishment, like Dr. Branham had said, all that horrible prison pizza. But the vitamins in the after meal injection would put me right. No doubt at all about that, I thought. Chapter 4. Where I was wheeled to, brothers, was like no cine I had ever fitted before. True enough, one wall was all covered with silver screen, and direct opposite was a wall with square holes in for the projector to project through, and there were stereo speakers stuck all over the mesto. But against the right-hand one of the other walls was a bank of all little meters, and in the middle of the floor, facing the screen, was like a dentist's chair, with all lengths of wire running from it, and I had to crawl from the wheelchair to this, being given some help by another male nurse vec in a white coat. Then I noticed that underneath the projection holes was all frosted glass, and I thought I fitted shadows of people moving behind it, and I thought I slushied somebody cough, casual, 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 this new, rich pastry and the vitamins injected into me. Right, said the wheelchair-wheeling Vic. Now, I'll leave you. The show will commence as soon as Dr. Brodsky arrives. Hope you enjoy it. To be truthful, brothers, I did not really feel that I wanted to video any film show this afternoon. I was just not in the mood. I would have liked much better to have a nice, quiet spatchka on the bed. Nice and quiet, and all on my oddy noggy. I felt very limp. What happened now was that one white-coated Vic strapped my Gulliver to a headrest, singing to himself all the time some funny galley pop song. What's this for? I said, and this Vic replied, interrupting his song an instant, that it was to keep my Gulliver still and to make me look at the screen. But, I said, I want to look at the screen. I have been brought here to video films, and video films I shall. And then the other white coat Vic. There were 3 altogether. One of them a Debotchka, who was sitting at the bank of meters and twiddling with knobs. Had a bit of a smack at that. He said, "You never know. Oh, you never know. Trust us, friend. It's better this way." And then I found they were strapping my rookers to the chair arms, and my nogas were stuck to a footrest. It seemed a bit bazoomy to me, but I let them get on with what they wanted to get on with. If I was to be a free young Malchik again in a fortnight's time, I would put up with much in the meantime, oh my brothers. One fish I did not like, though, was when they put clips on the skin of my forehead, so that my top glass lids were pulled up and up and up, and I could not shut my glassies, no matter how I tried. I tried to smack and said, "This must be a real horror show film if you're so keen on my videoing it." And one of the white coat Vex said, smacking, "Horror show is right, friend. A real show of horrors." And then I had a cap stuck on my Gulliver, and I could pity all wires running away from it, and they stuck a suction pad on my belly, and one on the old TikToker, show started off with some grumpy atmosphere music coming from the speakers, very fierce and full of discord. And then, on the screen, the picture came on, but there was no title and no credits. What came on was a street, and it might have been any street in any town, and it was a real dark noche, and the lamps were lit. It was a very good, professional piece of cine, and there were none of these flickers and blobs you get, say, when you vidi one of these dirty films in somebody's house in a back street. All the time the music pumped out, very sinister, and then you could vidi an old man coming down the street, very starry, and then there leaped out on this starry vec 2 malchicks, dressed in the height of fashion, as it was at this time. Still thin trousers, but no cravat anymore, more of a real tie. And then they started to filly with him. You could slooshy his screams and moans, very realistic, and you could even get the heavy breathing and panting of the 2 toe-jogging malchicks. They made a real pudding out of this starry vec, going crack, crack, crack at him with the fisty Rugers, tearing his bladdies off, and then finishing up by putting his Nagoi plot. This lay all gravy red in the grasny mud of the gutter, and then running off very scurry. Then there was the close-up Gulliver of this beaten-up starry vec, and the gravy flowed beautiful red. It's funny how the colours of the real world only seem really real when you vidi them on the screen. Now, all the time I was watching this, I was beginning to get very aware of a not feeling all that well, and this I put down to the undernourishment and my stomach not quite ready for the rich pishta and vitamins I was getting here. But I tried to forget this, concentrating on the next film, which came on at once, my brothers, without any break at all. This time the film jumped right away on a young Tavochka who was being given the old in-out by first one malchick, then another, then another, then another. She creeching away very grumpy through the speakers and very pathetic, and tragic music going on at the same time. This was real, very real, though if you thought about it properly, you couldn't imagine ladies actually agreeing to having all this done to them in a film. And if these films were made by the good or the state, you couldn't imagine them being allowed to take these films without interfering with what was going on. So it must have been very clever, what they call cutting or editing or some such vest, for it was very real. And when it came to the 6th or 7th malchick leering and smacking and then going into it, and the Tavochka screeching on the soundtrack like Bazoomi, then I began to feel sick. I had pains all over and felt I could sick up and at the same time not sick up, and I began to feel in distress. Oh, my brothers, being fixed rigid too on this chair. When this bit of film was over, I could slooshy the golos of this Dr. Brodsky from over by the switchboard, saying, "Reaction about 12.5. Promising, promising." Then we shot straight into another lomtic of film, and this time it was of just a human Lizzo agonizing screams that ever came from a human coloss. So, this time, I knew I had to sick up, so I screeched, "I want to be sick. Please, let me be sick. Please, bring something for me to be sick into." But this Dr. Brodsky called back, "Imagination only. You've nothing to worry about. Next film coming up." That was perhaps meant to be a joke, for I heard a smack coming from the dark, and then I was forced to video a most nasty film about Japanese torture. It was the 1939 to 45 war, and there were soldiers being fixed to trees with nails, and having fires lit under them, and having their yarbles cut off. And you even videoed a Gulliver being sliced off a soldier with a sword, and then with his head rolling about, and the rot and glasses looking alive still. The plot of this soldier